It feels kind of like a win for us. Like, I told my wife about 2 or 3 months ago, I'm going to participate in this election. I'm going to put out everything that I possibly can as often as I possibly can. You couldn't do that while at ESPN, but you can do that here at OutKick, which makes OutKick great, which makes this the most fun place there is. My friend Fran Fraschilla put out a somewhat political post the other day, and I responded to it, and he had to delete it. But what a great day it is today. Doesn't it feel like America is back, baby? We're back. Done with the pandering, done with the cackling, done with the stupid, done with the lying, done with the name calling, done with all of that garbage that we've had to endure as president-elect. Donald Trump got her done last night in big-time fashion. Holy smokes. Donald Trump didn't mess around. The American people did not mess around. They sent a message loud and clear. Don't bring your lying. Don't bring your name calling. Garbage, Nazis, racists, misogynists. Oh, man. We're a little tired of that. The DNC better go figure out how to win an election without, calling names, without a policy, without anything to stand on other than, hey, other side bad. We'll give you $25,000 for a house. Billionaires pay their share. Yeah, you can have an abortion up to 15 months. What do we care? That's what they say, and it was nice that Donald Trump called to win the greatest political movement ever, and it is. A true outsider winning. I'm not going to go into what happened in 2020 and then coming back and winning again. Wow. It's going to be interesting to see from this point on a couple of things. There it is. He's the Don again. Yeah, he is. In a weird way, this doesn't happen very often, but in a very, very weird way, a billionaire resonating with, us normal folk is odd, isn't it? But as the race went on and on and on, a strange thing happened. People started seeing Donald Trump and saying, wait a second, he's like me. He's like me. He's like you. They started seeing a $60,000 necklace on Kamala, whatever the hell her name is, Harris, walking through the border for a photo op, and they're like, wait a second, I don't really relate to that. I don't really relate to all the name-calling, the lying. I don't really relate to Oprah. I don't really relate to that skeezy-looking Obama. I don't really relate to any of that. And isn't that weird? Because it used to be the other way around, right? Republicans used to be the party of the rich. And even though there's a billionaire out there representing all of us, and I do mean all of us, even though that Democrats lost, frankly, you won, you Democrats, because the guy who's going to help you is in office, guy that's going to stop these idiotic wars, guy that's going to secure our border, guys that's going to get rid of criminals in our communities is here for you. So Democrats, it was a win-win situation. If your candidate won, I guess you would feel good, but Trump won, so guess what? You get to actually get things accomplished. I don't know what's going to happen here, and President-elect Trump still has a ways to go to get to office, and as we all know, there are some bad people out there that want to take the man down. There are. There's some bad folks out there. 2 assassination attempts, felony charges. What else is some fat ass down in Georgia going to bring, or some fat DA on the Southern District of New York going to bring against Trump? I don't know. Maybe in 1974 he tickled a kitty in her belly. What other little whore is going to come out of the woodwork to claim something about Trump? But I got to tell you, it's all too late. It's all too late. I've said forever, I'm sure Trump was a complete pig back in the day, in the 70s and the 80s, as he was a businessman. I'm sure he was. I don't care. What do I care about that? What was Kamala Harris back in the 80s? Side piece, Willie Brown, look it up. Care about all that. I care about what are you going to do for our nation. It was the first time ever. I want you to think about this, because a lot of you said the same thing to me. It was the first time ever I did not want to pay taxes. You know that? First time ever I did not want to pay taxes because I saw where the money was going. Why am I paying for immigrants in hotels more than paying for our vets? Why am I paying for some idiotic war in the Ukraine as opposed to help our people in Maui, in North Carolina? Oprah can take her fat ass back to scamming the American people. There's a new sheriff in town. There's a new Don in town. And his name is Donald Trump. That's right. All right, let's go through it. He successfully reversed the losses in 2020 in states like Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. The GOP has taken back the White House. They flipped the Senate. They're on pace to regain the House, and they have a majority in the Supreme Court. Now, with all that power comes some responsibility. You can't go out there acting like a dumbass. Didn't it feel like the other crew, the Kamala, whatever the hell her name is, Harris crew, was trying to overturn everything in our government, filibusters. They wanted to stack the courts. I mean, at least for 4 years now, we got rid of that. But here's even more, and I want you to think about this. This election is going to resonate for years. You can't bullshit the American people. You can't show up and overturn what has worked in this country for a couple 100+ years. You can't do it. You can act like you do it. You can want to do it. You can be dumb enough to try it. But when it all comes down to it, you can't bullshit the American people. You can't. I'm sorry. I've always said it. I will always say it. Free and fair election. You're not going to be able to bullshit it. Mark Cuban, hey, Donald Trump won fair and square. You know what? A lot of people on the Republican side owe a debt of gratitude to Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban stood up and showed how stupid he really is, how arrogant he really is. I think him and Tim Walz in a scissors would be interesting. I don't know who would pitch and who would catch. They both seem catcherish to me. I've always said that about Cuban, and I didn't know who Walz was until this election. But Mark Cuban really helped the Democrats lose. His comment about women infuriated them. Made a lot of women stand up and say, wait a second, jackass, that's just a straight lie. See, it's one thing to lie about things we don't know. It's one thing to lie about some war. It's one thing to lie about some deep, in-depth economic program. But it's another thing to lie about things we know simply are not true. And the women of the United States knew that Cuban's bullshit about Donald Trump not wanting to be around strong women was exactly that. That brought people out. That made people angry. Now, what we also said was there's going to be a lot of people with a lot of money saying they're going to vote for Harris, but they ain't. I'd bet dollars to donuts, LeBron James, I'll bet you he voted for Trump. I'll bet you. These guys make billions. You think they want their money going crazy-ass places? You think they want more tax? I think Popovich, probably Kerr, Doc Rivers, those idiots, they probably voted, Steph Curry, they probably voted for Harris because, well, you know, Popovich is pandering. Doc Rivers got paid, allegedly. And Steph Curry, I want somebody to look like me. I told you this before, and I'll tell you this again. Not one unbiased, I've said this forever, not one unbiased, informed, rational United States citizen could possibly vote Harris, and none did. Yeah, I get it. I want women of color. I want people that look like me. I get that. I hate Donald Trump. I get that. I'm a staunch Democrat. I vote straight Democrat every year since 1910. I get that. That's it. That's all that we're going to vote for. Anybody that was informed had no shot ever. Ever. Just saying. Hey, the college football playoff rankings came out last night. Did you know that? See, here in Indiana, over this shoulder here, where I am Indiana, I'm Indiana's most famous, popular, most influential grad. Now that Cuban has put himself in a mess, Sage Steele among us as well. But I got to tell you, I want to go back to something. I want to go back to something that's in the rundown that I missed because this is glorious. I'll get to the poll in a minute. Jen Psaki, the redheaded flamethrower. Former, Obama, Biden, whatever, press secretary. She had a meltdown last night. And she knows that she and her lies are now rendered useless. Jen Psaki last night, melting down. Here we go.
I think this is a big, huge part of the story that it's hard to even digest fully at this moment. But you have Elon Musk, who owns Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it these days, X, who is a disinformation propagandist and now could potentially have a direct line to the Oval Office.
Yeah, that wasn't the big meltdown, though. How come we didn't play the big meltdown? I wanted a big meltdown. What happened to the meltdown that I sent? This is a baby meltdown. This isn't good. I want the big meltdown. I want the tears. She didn't have any tears. Good, I'm glad. I like when smart people have access to the Oval Office. I like when very, 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 very influential, smart, industrious people like Elon Musk have access to the Oval Office. I like that. I do. You may not. I do. Who has access? Diddy? Was Diddy seen running around with lube in his hand around the Oval Office? I want smart people in charge. R.F. Kennedy Jr., smart dude. Don't tell me you're nuts. They tried everything with R.F. Kennedy Jr. I went into the voting place yesterday, and he was on the ballot. They tried everything. Everything. It didn't work. What can I tell you? College football playoff yesterday. 12 teams were announced. That was big. You might have been focused on something else. Let's take a look at what the committee laid out for us. Here is the playoff bracket. All right. Before you lose your mind and show your ignorance, don't. The 4 teams that get byes are the winner of the 4 major conferences. Number 1, Oregon, Big Ten. Number 2, Georgia, SEC. Number 3, Miami, ACC. And number 4, BYU, the Big 12. I would argue this. People have come on this show and others and said brand matters. I would argue that 9-0, the way they've done it, Indiana, were they named Penn State? Were they named Notre Dame? Were they named Michigan? I believe Indiana would be second in the country in regular polls. I believe they would replace Ohio State in this poll. I do. See, Ohio State's where it's at. Right now, Ohio State would sign up for this today, tomorrow, and the next day. And that's where you got to get. You got to get right there. You got to get numero 5. That's where you want to hang. Right there. I don't know if that's 5. Can you put that bigger? Where's Ohio State? What are they, number 5 or 6? I can't really see. I got no eyes. Looks like number 6, which is weird to me. 9 and 8 playing number 1 is right to me. But Ohio State, I would think Indiana, based on resume, would be ahead of Ohio State. But I get it. Brand matters. I'm a little pissed off at this poll, and I'll tell you why. People say, well, Indiana just keep winning. Yeah, we all get that. But an undefeated season's hard. Even if you're Notre Dame and you get to set your own damn schedule, it's hard. Incredibly hard. But if Indiana does go undefeated, I don't know. Maybe they got to play Oregon in the championship game. Maybe they lose that in a tight one. They get 5th. You want to be 5th. 5th is the spot. 5th is better than any other spot on this board, in my opinion. You telling me to get to the national championship playing Boise and then BYU? Let's look at 10. Let's look at 7. 7, you got to play Notre Dame and then Georgia. Let's look at 4, right? 4, you got to play Ohio State. I want to play Ohio State if I'm BYU. No, 5th is where it's at. Run me through Boise and run me through BYU, a team like Ohio State, Indiana, Alabama, Texas, Notre Dame, and Penn State. They whip through that like me through a souffle or me through the ravioli my wife made last night, which was, so good. So there you go. I love the fact that it's out. I'm very excited that my school is in. No, I'm more than very excited. I can't wait. No, it's going to be awesome. Skip Bayless, 72 years old and young, finally free from the constraints of corporate media, allowed himself to step out of his lane to discuss the most fascinating presidential election in his lifetime, admitting Donald Trump is a much better leader, more impressive than Vice President Kamala Harris. You see this? This is the remote to my TV. This is more dynamic. This is more interesting. This is a better leader than Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris couldn't lead wild turkeys to take a shit. She couldn't today, she couldn't tomorrow, she couldn't the next day. Kamala Harris is the worst candidate not named Hillary Clinton ever. She's the second most unlikable. By the way, I am not suicidal. But Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris, the two worst. However, Joe Biden's got to be right in the middle. And the fact that Joe Biden gets to sit back, rub on his chin, he's probably doing it here, he doesn't know the difference, rub on his dementia-ridden head and celebrate today is telling. When I saw Jill Biden, the evil one, wearing a red outfit yesterday, that told me what I needed to know. The Bidens are voting for Trump. The Bidens, as much as they hate Donald Trump, I will promise you, somehow, some way, when the book comes out, there will be conversations between Biden and Trump, private ones. I'll guarantee you. As Charlie told me this morning, women put on clothes for a reason. Guys mostly don't, although I did today. Get this sassy OutKick 1777 shirt at the OutKick store. Why am I wearing it? Because we got our America back. But anyway, Skip Bayless speaks out. Skip Bayless said this.
I'm having a hard time convincing myself Kamala Harris will make the kind of president this country deserves. In so many other interviews I've seen her do, she occasionally loses her train of thought. She just rambles. And I start to wonder, is she really the kind of dynamic leader and decision maker this country needs and deserves? They're voting for Kamala only because there's no way they'd vote for Donald Trump. It's not that they believe deeply in Kamala. They're completely sold on Kamala. No, it's just that they have condemned Donald Trump as a far-right psycho who cannot be allowed back into power. Let me say this about Donald Trump. I do not share a number of his views, maybe many of his views, but I do believe he's a natural-born leader who isn't afraid to make tough decisions. He does have what I call, if you will, some General Patton in him. You know General Patton from World War II, way before some of your times? Look him up. Donald Trump has some hard-ass commander in him. Sometimes if you want to preserve your freedom from superpowers that want to take it from you, you need a Patton on your side at the controls, even if you don't believe in his politics.
Well, you're right about that. I mean, I could give a rat's ass about being nice. I mean, all those little signs, no one's illegal, everyone's welcome here. We all knew that was bullshit. Went out the door when illegal immigrants were sent. Hey, look, I said this. My views switched for my entire life, and still this is true. I do not want to hear the word inflation. I mean, back when I was a kid, I couldn't get McDonald's. We couldn't do anything, really, because of inflation. I don't want to see gas lines, gas prices, gas shortages, those kind of things. But now my main thing is immigration. I mean, we're letting criminals in here like it's their job. We're letting criminals in here because, well, apparently that's just what we do. And that's not right. And then we're paying for them more so than our vets, more so than our victims of hurricanes, floods. No, it's insanity to me. It really is. It's total, complete insanity to me that this is what we allow. Now, I agree with Skip Bayless. Sometimes you need leadership. You don't need pandering. The United States has had enough of pandering, enough of lying, enough of name-calling, enough of the ridiculousness. We need leadership. Hopefully we'll get it. We'll see. Look, I'm not a sheep just because Donald Trump got elected. I said yesterday on this show that his answer to Bill Belichick about Caitlin Clark was pure gibberish. You know, they call it the weave, right? Well, I don't know. I don't need a president that weaves. I need a president that solves, helps. We'll see. Skip Bayless then proceeded to blast Tom Brady, I'm with him on this, for his broadcasting skills, naming him the Daniel Jones of broadcasting. What? All right, good news. Sunday's Cowboys game is on CBS, not Fox, so we get Tony Romo instead of Tom Brady. As I've said 12 trillion times, Tom Brady was the greatest NFL player by far. But as an analyst, he's nothing but Daniel Jones. I'm sorry, but Tom Brady drove me nuts yesterday during the Detroit-Green Bay game with his endless, giddy, Captain Obvious blabber. He talks and talks and talks some more about what is so clichély obvious, so annoyingly obvious. So Pat's Brady talking to the media is obvious. So eager to be a nice guy, Tom. So little insight, so many words, so many close-ups. Hi, I'm Tom Brady. Yeah, we know. Unfortunately, we know, Tom. I'm with him. I don't think Tom Brady's any good. I mean, he's on Fox, so I guess I got to say he's good. But I listen and I watch, and I've critiqued announcers my entire lifetime. Hell, I remember as a little kid, we used to get Johnny Morris and Dave Ryan, and I didn't like it for the Bears game. I didn't like it. Then I would watch others, and I'm like, hey, I like them. When Keith Jackson did a game, even when I was a little kid, I understood it. Even Musburger coming up as a young buck, coming up in, Chicago. I liked him. I knew he was going to be great. Brady's awful. I don't think Olsen's any good either. I get it. Olsen's like the backup quarterback that everybody likes. But, hey, maybe I don't like anybody but myself. That wouldn't be surprising to anybody but myself. Hey, an NFL team reportedly used San Francisco 49er Nick Bosa's Donald Trump supporting moment to warn its players about the potential cost of speaking out ahead of Election Day. Man, hey, look, it's all right, though, if you're black. I guarantee you could do it. If you're white like Bosa or the punter, you ain't doing it. We all know. I mean, why? Why am I the only one saying it? Albert Breer, an insider, checked in with 9 NFL teams to see what the teams are telling their players. According to Breer, one of the teams used Bosa going on Sunday Night Football to show off a Make America Great hat as a negative example. The first team had its public relations director address the team Thursday, Breer wrote. The PR chief raised the example from last week of Bosa telling players he'd lose a large sum of money, 5 figures, from the fallout. And he didn't even utter a word in emphasis to the players that while they are free to speak out, there can be a cost to it. That unnamed NFL team's PR chief then apparently lied to the team's players based on what Breer reported from the PR person's message. He added that as, come on. As a result, Bosa's teammates had to answer questions they otherwise wouldn't have had to. As an example how a personal endorsement or personal statement can become a team matter. No 49er players were asked to address Bosa's political hat stunt in the aftermath of Sunday's game. And other than 3 players being interviewed by NBC, tight end Kittle, Purdy, the quarterback, and Isaac Guerendo, that's it. Just stop. Why do people got to lie about this stuff? So what? Guy put a hat on. Great. Make America great again. Everybody should want to make America great again. We're not great right now. We're giving money to senseless wars. We got an immigration problem. We got inflation through the roof. We got an idiot, dementia-ridden president who's very happy today. I guess that makes America great. Not to me. Joe Kelly is the Dodgers reliever. He's kicking them. He's kicking ass. He's kicking the Yankees when they're down. Labels the Yankees as one of the worst in the playoffs. Like it was a mismatch from the get-go, Dodgers-Yankees. This is Kelly. It's pretty funny. It was a mismatch from the get-go. If we had a playoff re-ranking, they might be ranked 8th or the 9th best playoff team. You know what I mean? You're putting the Padres ahead of them. You're putting the Phillies ahead of them. You're putting the Mets ahead of them. You're putting the Braves ahead of them. And the Braves just got unlucky because they had to play that doubleheader. The Guardians played like crap, but the Guardians played better deep, better baseball all around. Oh, shut up. Oh, just shut up. I like Joe Kelly. Joe Kelly looks like a nerd, but he throws the ball 100 miles an hour, and he's tough as hell. But just shut up. All right, you whipped their ass. But you know what? It doesn't matter if everybody in the National League, according to Joe Kelly, was better than the Yankees. The Yankees had to play the American League. I like this kind of stuff, though. Baseball needs more of it. Sports needs more of it. Enough of the little D-bag. Look at my jersey swap. Enough of dancing to TikTok videos. Walk like a damn man with the great American penis. Or shut the hell up. So I'm not mad at Kelly. I just flip-flopped right there on an issue as I was talking to you. By the way, you can get this great shirt. I know a lot of you are asking. Just go to OutKick.com shop. You can get this great shirt. Seriously. You know what I mean? Man, a friend of mine just texted me this. Said, hey, I'm at a business meeting today. I'm at a budget meeting right now, and 2 women are crying. What is wrong with you people? I'm crying. My reproductive rights are taken away. Oh, shut up. Just shut up. I'm so tired of hearing that. Mike Gundy is the coach at Oklahoma State, Oklahoma football. Oklahoma State football is, in my opinion, and has always been irrelevant. No, it has. I understand we're all supposed to stand up, jump up and down, stand on our head and shit snowballs over Oklahoma State, T. Boone Pickens, and the rest. But they're always 9-3, 8-4. Now they're really bad. He blasted his critics in the media as Oklahoma State has been one of the, if not the biggest disappointments in college football this season. 3-6, 0-6 in the league. People that are negative and voicing their opinion are the same ones that can't pay their own bills. What? What's he talking about? What's the mulleted one talking about? It's what happens in college athletics. Just on a bigger stage where people can voice their opinion. In most cases, the people that are negative and voicing their opinions are the same one that can't pay their own bills. They're not taking care of themselves, not taking care of their own family, they're not taking care of their own job. But they have an obligation to speak out and complain about others because it makes them feel better. But then in the end, when they go to bed at night, they're the same failure that they were before they said anything negative about anybody else. Really? Huh. That doesn't seem very nice. That doesn't seem very nice at all. In fact, I would argue that he's wrong. I would argue there's probably a lot of rich dudes because there's a lot of money over there in Oklahoma. There's a lot of money. I guarantee you there's a lot of money people, a lot of NIL people that are like, yo, get a TO, baby. Get a TO. What are you talking about? I'm rich as hell, and I don't like what you're doing, coach. Nobody's going to like you at 0-6, particularly in this day and age where you're begging boosters to give you money for the quarterback. We got to have a car for the quarterback. If I gave the car for the quarterback and the quarterback sucks and the team is 0-6 in the Big 12, I'm like, yo, what are we doing? What's going on around here? Jeez. I guarantee you better be careful with that action. Again, what has college sports become? College sports has become a booster-driven league. Boosters pay the freight. What a freight it is. And you're going to piss them off? All right, let's go to Nick. Nick is sitting there with his – Nick, are you crying over the victory by Donald Trump last night? Are you sad about that?
Does it look like I'm sad? Does it look like I'm crying? No. Yeah, because I'm not.
No.
I'm very happy.
No.
I'm a man of many hats, as you can see.
Let me ask you a weird question. As a young guy, did you stay up and watch all this last night?
Yeah, I did. Kind of. I stayed up until midnight, and then they called North Carolina for Trump. And then after that, I got kind of tired, and I went to bed. And then around like 2:45, 3 o'clock in the morning, I got back up to watch more of it. And that's when I think they declared Wisconsin for Trump. And at that point, I was like, it's over. Because at that point, he breached 270 and he won. So, yeah, I watched a little bit of it, but I took a nap in between.
Yeah, I didn't watch a second. I'm not going to lie. You know what? My stepdaughter was over, my wife. I'm like, let's watch a Alfred Hitchcock movie. So we watched The Birds, which is a stupid movie. I think I'd read the book 100 years ago, but watching The Birds was stupid. And then we turned on a show we're watching. I forget what it's called. But, I was doing everything I could. I didn't want to watch. I didn't want to go through all the crap. I didn't want to listen to all the people. I didn't want to have to hear all the nonsense. And frankly, I'm glad I didn't. But in the end, I kept waking up because I wake up many times to take a pee. And next thing you know, I saw that Trump had won. And I was pretty happy about that. I really was. I don't want anything to do with Harris. I hope she goes away. I hope Walz goes away. Make your millions, do your thing, and go be dirtbags from whence you came. I think, Nick, I think Tim Walz, and I don't think people vote for a candidate based on the vice president to see. I really don't. Maybe this year more than others. But I think Tim Walz was a god-awful choice. And I'm not saying because he should have gone with Shapiro in Pennsylvania where he's Jewish, but I just think he was a god-awful choice by the way he conducted himself. I don't think he appealed to any adult male with the great American penis.
No, and I completely agree with you. And the one thing that I'm really looking forward to in the next few months is having the Kamala HQ Twitter and Tim Walz's Twitter just completely evaporate from all of social media. They are the two cringiest accounts across the internet. That's what I'm really looking for. The fact that when Trump posted that social media clip of him of the cutaways of Tim Walz with the jazz hands waving to everybody, like, you know, under the song Dancing Queen, I knew right then and there, like, she should have picked Josh Shapiro if she wanted like some sort of a chance. Like him, like Trump picking JD was spectacular. Her picking Tim Walz, nobody knew who he was until the election started, or until Kamala became the appointee. So I'm so glad that they're just going to be gone.
You know, one of the things that I've said is, and I've said this early in the show, and I'll say it again, I thought that Kamala Harris was the worst candidate. Actually, if I really looked at it, a worse candidate than Hillary Clinton. You can make the argument that Hillary Clinton at least was an accomplished politician. Kamala Harris was a DEI hire, and everybody knows that. And I said to people, African-American, white, whatever, you would not be voting for Kamala Harris were she a white dude. The only reason many people voted for Kamala Harris, and I'm going to give it to you, I want someone that looks like me. Ellen Henderson, a terrific basketball player, longtime NBA guy, coached him at Indiana. You know, he put out, hey, my daughter, half African-American, half Indian, I'm voting for somebody that looks like me, and I don't blame him. I honestly don't. I get that. I also get people that absolutely hate Donald Trump and can't think for themselves. I get those folks voting for Kamala Harris. I also get, because this happens, people that are going to vote directly down party lines. When you go into the voting booth, as I did yesterday, it gives you the option, straight Democrat, straight Republican, and you can get the hell out of there. I didn't do it because there was a couple people on the Democrat side that I wanted to vote for in other races. However, many people do that, and I understood that. I did. I understood that this is what was going to happen. But I also said, and I continue to say, not one reasonable, unbiased United States citizen could possibly vote Harris. And I said that on purpose, United States citizen. Who knows? There's a reason these folks have let millions, illegal immigrants in. There's a reason for that. There's a reason that people just, well, if you're informed, that means you've paid attention to what's going on in immigration. That means you've paid attention to what's going on with the economy. That means you've paid attention to the lies, the deceit. You know, if you're going to lie about Joe Biden for all these months without repercussion, holy cow, you'll lie about anything. You know, it's like I've always said, lying about Joe Biden's dementia was like the guy caught naked in bed with a woman that wasn't his wife, and he was caught by his wife in bed. And he looks at her and says, honey, nothing going on here. You going to believe me or what your eyes tell you? They were running a shell game on us, and I didn't like it. Tell you what else I didn't like, and this is just me, and this goes back. I liked when Reagan gave a speech. I didn't really care at the time. I really got to disliking when George W. Bush gave a speech. I didn't mind George H. He was fine. But George W. Bush, when he gave a speech, I thought it was all rehearsed nonsense. That was computer generated. And then, of course, when Clinton got in there, you couldn't believe a word he said, but I didn't have a problem with how he spoke. Man, Obama made me nuts. Obama was like, I guess Bush was after Clinton, but Obama made me nuts. Obama tried to put everything out as the Gettysburg Address. He tried to put everything out so that it would be etched on the side of the Obama monument, which I guarantee you is coming. I mean, we got to pander somehow for this loss, but he drove me bat blank crazy. He did. Not necessarily as much as Bush Jr., but man, he did drive me bat blank crazy. I'm starting to feel that way about Trump. It started at the national convention. I'm like, man, but boy, oh boy, did I feel that way about Kamala Harris. I could not listen to that cackling, arrogant jackass any longer. Really, I could not any longer. And then Walz with all of his, well, effeminate male energy. Who can listen to that? So, many things are good about Donald Trump winning. Stocks are soaring at an all-time high right now. Hell, sell and then buy when they drop down. But anyway, long story short, it's good to see Biden's ass out of there. It's going to be good to see Harris's ass out of there. And congratulations to President-elect Donald Trump. And here's also what I like about it. I like the fact that I feel really good about J.D. Vance. I do. I feel like if this thing stays on a decent course, I feel like J.D. Vance as the next president over 8 years, I feel like this could be 12 great years. I do. Remember, we're talking about the Great Reset. Think about this. 12 of 16 years, Democrats have been in control, and we got to have a reset? Whew. You mentioned it off air. America is up. It's amazing to me. It feels like we dodged a bullet. Not literally, I know Trump did, but it feels like we're free, doesn't it? Like it feels like we're free.
You know, I've gone back and forth on this, Dakich, and we can get a little caught up in sort of dancing on the graves of our opponents, of dancing in the end zone. But I don't think that's necessarily the accurate. I'm not talking about the right or wrong thing to do, but I'm talking about the accurate analysis of what just happened in America. Hear me out here for just a second. I think in 2016, we saw a complete rejection. 2016 was a giant middle finger. It was a middle finger to the elites. It was a middle finger to the union worker to his union representative, from the Hicks and the Hayseeds to the good old boys, and a middle finger to the effetes, and ultimately to Hillary Clinton. 2020, Dakich, should have been a rejection of complete insanity. COVID insanity, race insanity, gender insanity. But I think we can look back with some real sober analysis and say, but we were censored and manipulated and cheated out of what should have been a message in 2020. 2024 is not a rejection. What's left to reject? You know, Dakich, I mean, the race game has become a joke. I mean, it's gotten beyond a joke. It's become a sad, blocked, silent, muted voice in America. The media manipulation doesn't cut. That's a dull knife. You know, there's not much to reject because they've become a farce of themselves. What I think we just saw, and to your point, this feeling of freedom and celebration is an embrace. It's an embrace of Donald Trump, the Trump economy, Donald Trump's personality that was revealed in places like Theo Vaughn and with Andrew Schultz and Joe Rogan. And it's a victory, therefore. It's not so much a defeat for Kamala Harris. It's a victory for Donald Trump. And in my estimation, then, therefore, a victory for red, white, and blue. Not black, white, brown, yellow, green, but red, white, and blue, a victory for America.
You know, staying on that, isn't it amazing, though, that people that allegedly, or did, I guess, get 80-some million votes, somehow, some way, put in charge of America, failed us so miserably that 4 years or 3.5, whatever it is later, we're all celebrating a victory for America, which is a victory against Biden, his 80-some million votes, and all that he, Harris, and the rest stood for. It's kind of amazing. You elect somebody, and you got to overcome them, like what they did to America. It's amazing to me. It doesn't make sense.
And history will look back at that 80 million votes with a huge amount of skepticism because it is a historical aberration that vanished into the vapor in 2024. But to your point of what was overcome, let's just take a moment to step back for a minute. Donald Trump was censored and obliterated off of the internet after 2020. He was attempted to be removed from the ballot. He was pursued by the Department of Justice with lawfare. He was prosecuted and arrested multiple times over. There were not one, but two attempts on his life. That same machine, by the way, propped up the senile remains of Joe Biden for 3.5 years. It then placed Kamala Harris into the machine. And all of that marshaled together, along with, by the way, Wonder Woman, Batman, the Avengers, Mark Ruffalo, the Hulk, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, all of that together lost to Donald Trump.
Isn't it amazing? Like, if you went back and you looked at the history of the parties, you said this to start this discussion. You said Donald Trump's personality shined through. Isn't it amazing that here it is, a billionaire, businessman, strictly a business. I mean, doesn't sleep, always working, that kind of thing. His personality, if you go back to the 70s and 80s, I'm betting Donald Trump was a pig. I mean, all you got to do is watch shows about 70s and 80s business guys. They were pigs. But now our world has turned into where this guy's personality legitimately won it from him just by simply being available and relatable to the American people, by speaking on the simplest terms to Americans about what we all want and what we stand for. It's astounding to me, the flip here in parties.
So what we're talking about now, I think, Dakich, is also that it wasn't just a victory for Donald Trump and it wasn't just a victory for America, but it was a victory for reality. So Donald Trump definitely has his rough edges, but Donald Trump is a likable personality. But for 8 years now, you have been presented a caricature, a fascist, a Nazi, a racist, a threat to our democracy. You've been presented a false reality. Last night, I truly do believe this, Dakich, represents a funeral, a wake for CNN, CBS, ABC, NBC, New York Times, Washington Post, NPR, and more. It represents a funeral for the manipulation of reality, for a false reality, because it no longer controls our minds. They're impotent, Dakich. And in its place rose, of course, Fox News has always been there as a window into, real America. But in podcasts, in Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn and Andrew Schultz, you had a window into the real personality of Donald Trump. Now, that's not a salve. That's not a fix-all. If Democrats look up today and go, next time in 2028, we've got to be on podcasts. Well, let me tell you, Kamala Harris wouldn't have done well on Joe Rogan. You have to have a personality that people can connect to and like. And that's the reality of Donald Trump. So what we have a victory of also last night is a defeat of a false reality. And now we can all live together, I hope, as Americans. And I mean that. Left, right, black, white, every version of American. We can all live together in this reality.
Oh, you know what? I think we went from very divided to very united here when you look at the numbers and who, in fact, did vote for who. Why did this happen? Was it
right?
I mean, you just mentioned, why did this happen? What specifically in your mind, other than what they did relative to Trump? What did Trump do other than show himself? Why did African Americans, Hispanics, why did the, quote, marginalized go for Trump?
Not just African Americans and Hispanics, which he won in historic numbers. He won more of those two demographics, African American men and Latinos, than any other Republican president in history. More in modern history. More than, for example, with Latinos, than George W. Bush. But not just Latinos and black men. Jews, Muslim Americans. He won with almost every minority, which, by the way, for one more moment, we should just revisit, makes him the worst racist Nazi candidate to ever run for president. He's the most failed racist Nazi you've ever seen, who just keeps winning over minorities. Why? Is your question, Dakich. Why? Because every single one of us are not just Americans, but human beings. And every single one of us have these things that we hold dear. And we are deeper than our skin color, than identity politics. We care about the economy. We care about the price of gasoline. We care about national security. We care about the idea of a nation state that means it requires protected borders. We value competency. We don't want someone who can't string together a paragraph and who has been placed in positions of power, or in the alternative, someone who is clearly losing his marbles. We want a strong leader, and that applies to almost every demographic of America. And so whether or not you woke up yesterday or early voted, and you're a Latino, or you are a black man, or you are a white man, or even a white woman, which Kamala Harris did not win by the same margins as Joe Biden. You understand this is about something bigger than reducing you to your superficial characteristics. This is about your life and the future of America. I think that is the why.
Anybody in this country, non-Donald Trump family, happier for the result than Jill and Joe Biden?
You see, Joe Biden went to the polls yesterday dressed in all red.
I saw.
Yeah. Have you seen the theory going? Have you seen the theory going around Biden that Joe? Have you seen a theory going around Dakich that Joe Biden could step down, resign in the next 3 months, making Kamala Harris the first female president? She becomes the 47th for a short period of time, ruining all the merchandise for Donald Trump because then he becomes 48. To that point, by the way, that's not just like some crazy internet comments. I've seen some people who I respect suggesting this as a possibility. That requires that Joe Biden wants that to happen for Kamala Harris. And I don't think there's anything inside of Joe Biden that wants to do a favor for Kamala Harris.
I feel like Joe Biden is sitting there going, if he can think, going, good for you. I would bet when the book comes out, you should write the book. Somebody's going to write a book on this whole thing. And I'm like, I guarantee you somehow, some way, Trump and Biden were talking. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like Biden was so bitter, so angry. His wife so bitter, so angry. They're so happy today, sitting back, doing whatever they do, with the walker, going, I told you she was no good.
I think so.
That kind of thing. Right? Don't you?
Yeah, I do. I think he is secretly pleased. I don't think he's talking to Donald Trump, and I don't think he likes Donald Trump. But I think as a man who spent 50 years running for office, who considers himself the top of the game when it comes to politicians, to be cast aside so unceremoniously. By the way, remember, he's George Washington in their telling. He is the man who stepped aside and, recognized that power wasn't as important as America. The George Washington narrative is certainly going to be something that is in the dustbin of history. By the way, so will Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. They're going to be trivia questions that people have trouble remembering. Like the SNL bit from this past weekend when Tim Cain, Hillary Clinton's running mate. Like even right now, anybody listening, before I said that, could you have named Hillary Clinton's vice presidential candidate? You probably couldn't. Tim Cain. He just won, by the way, in Virginia. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris lost to the dustbin of history. They will not be remembered, even in trivia questions on Trivial Pursuit. I don't even remember what your question was to me at this point, Dakich, but this is 4 hours sleep and a lot of talking. What did you ask me, Dakich?
I can't even remember. I'm just, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But I do want to ask you about the most important thing going, right? Most important thing going is over my shoulder right here, I'm proudly an Indiana graduate. And Indiana is now in the top 12 in college football. So I get to watch you root on your Texas, whatever the hell they are, Longhorns. I get to watch everybody, but now I get to participate.
Yeah.
So give me your reaction as the first top 12 poll came out. Yeah, we got screwed in the top 12 poll. Beggars want to be choosers. But what was your sense, if you even saw it after a busy night last night?
I'm going to be honest. And obviously, in any other week, I would have been highly attuned to the first college football playoff ranking. I don't know them. So would you do this? I'll tell you what. I'd love for you to read for me the top 12. And I voted, like you and I do every week in the OutKick poll rankings. And I'm going to tell you where I placed Indiana. I have mine. I just pulled it up right here. But I didn't see how they came out officially last night.
I don't know if can you see that right now? The Boise 12, Ohio State 5. Boise's 12, play Ohio State. Then Indiana is 8. They play 9 Tennessee. 11 is Alabama. They play number, 4, 6 Texas. I can barely see. 10 Notre Dame, play 7 Penn State. BYU 4, Oregon 1, Maryland 3, Georgia 2. Your Longhorns would have to beat at home Yeah, Miami. I'm Maryland. Maryland, my ass. Alabama would have to go to Texas, and then Texas would play Miami. Indiana, 8th.
Right. Okay.
Undefeated. If Indiana was named Texas, if Indiana just had a different name and the same resume, they would be a minimum 5th.
Okay. First, the biggest insult in that rankings is to have Alabama in at 11. SMU, I have a very similar ranking. I have SMU at 11, right ahead of Boise State. SMU is being disrespected at a greater level than Indiana. I know they have a loss on their books, but that's to BYU, by the way, who is undefeated at number 4. SMU has some real quality victories now on their resume, and SMU should be in any college football playoff ranking, especially over a 2-loss Alabama. I have Indiana at 8, Dakich. Same as the poll rankings. Am I insulting Indiana? Well, who do I have ahead of them? I have Penn State at 7. That I will hear you out if you think that's a big insult, because I've never been a big believer in Penn State. Texas at 6, Ohio State at 5, BYU at 4, Miami 3, Georgia 2, and Oregon 1. That is a playoff ranking, not a power ranking. I don't think Georgia's the second best team in the country, but you got to get your conference champions into the top 4. I don't think BYU belongs in the top 4, but they're a conference champion, placing them as a top 4 seed. Indiana, therefore, the argument you should have with someone like me belongs above Penn State, Texas, Ohio State, or Oregon. I think Indiana's good, and I do believe you're right. They've been disrespected. They've played the games on their schedule. But I am guilty of, I hope it's not reputational bias. I hope it's not like, oh, it's because it's Indiana. But the quality of victories in terms of who the opponents are, I am penalizing them right now. But they're in my top 12. If you get into the dance, I don't think you're allowed to complain. You get into the dance, Dakich, then you go win your games. And I think you're in the dance. Don't lose, because your reputation is going to kick you out of the dance. But right now, you're in the dance.
That's not enough. I mean, beggars want to be choosers. People get greedy. We do have the softest schedule in the history of Big Ten football. This year, Indiana will only play one ranked team, and it's coming up at Ohio State. So while I'm not even angry about it. I'm happy to be there right now. But I will say this. I have watched a lot of Penn State, and I've actually watched a lot of Ohio State. Everybody tells me how talented, and I'm going to the game in a couple weeks. I kind of go by what I see, and I've not been impressed with either. I think Penn State's one of the boringest teams. I think Georgia is potentially the best team. I saw what they did to your guys, Texas. Honest to God, Will, first play of the game, my wife and I are having a drink and an appetizer at this restaurant. First play of the Georgia-Texas game, I saw the Georgia kid hit the Texas player, and I told my wife I'm betting too much money on Georgia right now. It was just one of those days. I don't really have a problem with the ranking. I do think, though, that if you're going to go by teams and what you see, Notre Dame's pretty good. I think Notre Dame has gotten really good. I like SMU a lot. I can't let you go without this, though. Wasn't it inevitable that there was going to be a quarterback situation at Texas second year with Arch Manning?
Well, there's not yet. I mean, it's still Quinn Ewers' team. I mean, I think he's a little bit on watch at this point because he played so poorly in the last couple of games. But I'd be highly surprised at any point in this season if Quinn Ewers is benched permanently and the team is turned over to Arch Manning. That doesn't mean I don't think it should happen. I mean, I am impressed with Arch.
Do you think it should happen?
Better quarterback. I mean, you're a former coach, Dakich. I think he is the better player. Is he the better player by a margin that would, and you're playing, you've got a team that's in competition for the national title, so you should always play the better player, right? But Quinn is a 5-star recruit, transferred from Ohio State, Sarkisian's guy that he brought in. He was a bigger recruit, people don't realize this, than Arch, and he has played at times incredibly well, like Heisman Trophy candidate level well, last season and the beginning of this season. And I think you ride him out at least a little longer to see if he can right the ship because that would be a huge move. This will be Arch's program. I just think it starts next year at Texas.
I always go to what Nick Saban did, and I think it's the gutsiest thing I've ever seen a coach do. Halftime national championship game, he benches Hurts, puts in Tua Tagovailoa, and they beat Georgia. And, Will,
Right.
I go to that. I'm like, man, if I know, and you mentioned me being a coach, if I knew in my gut that this was the right move, and I'm not saying it is. I don't know. You're far closer to it than I am. But if I knew in my gut, man, I got to make the move. And again, I go to what Saban did. When Saban trotted him out, I was sitting with Tirico. We were doing a game the next day. And I'm like, Mike, who the hell is this? So I always go to that. I do. I go to that. And if you really believe it, you got to do it. Go ahead.
And look at both of their careers. I mean, you could argue that Hurts was the better quarterback, is the better quarterback over Tua. But in that moment, he made a gutsy call.
That's what I'm saying.
And the right call for his team. And by the way, I'll bet you, without even settling who the debate is over who the better quarterback is, Quinn or Arch, in that moment, I'm going to bet you, like he did with Georgia, Sark would do the same as Saban.
Really? He's got that kind of stones?
In the moment. I don't think he's going to do it until it's obvious that it's needed, that the team needs a jolt to win. I don't think he's going to do it like Arch has looked better in practice than Quinn.
Hey, last thing before I let you go. Who is the best team in the country? You didn't think Georgia was. Who do you think the best team in the country is?
I think we have to give it to Oregon. I think Oregon has looked, and by the way, same as you, the eye test. I look forward to a rematch with Georgia, hopefully in the SEC championship game. They did dominate Texas, but I didn't look at that and go, they're unbeatable. I think we're on par and played a terrible game against Georgia, and I've seen Georgia look way more vulnerable against lesser teams. Ohio State's best thing on their resume before this last weekend was a loss to Oregon, a close loss to Oregon. So I think it has to be right now easily your number one seed, and the best team according to the eye test is Oregon.
I think, per usual, Indiana's being disrespected. Will Cain just disrespected the Hoosiers right here live on America's Greatest Morning Show. No mention, 9-0. If they were named Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan. You know what is interesting? This Indiana, look, I'm old. I've been following Indiana since 1973, football, true story. I don't think I ever in my lifetime would have seen Indiana as a 14-point favorite over Michigan, ever. Ever. And that's where we're at.
I'm happy for you. I'm happy.
Thank you.
I'm happy that you don't just have to pay attention to a has-been basketball school, but you get to actually pay attention to a football school now as well. I'm really happy for you in Indiana.
Man, a has-been basketball school. Boom. Some might say that, well, you did go to the Final Four last year, didn't you, Texas? Because I got so tired of hearing Texas is back. And I got to tell you, Sam Ellinger's here in Indianapolis. You could take his ass back, too.
Oh, football Final Four. Yes, football Final Four. I thought you were talking about
that's
basketball.
what I mean.
By the way,
football.
we don't have to do this. Today's a day for America, but I do think this season's going to be good for Texas basketball.
No. I don't like your coach. He's a nice guy. Nope. Shouldn't have lost to Ohio State.
I like the roster.
Didn't need if they were really good, they would not have lost to Ohio State because Ohio State's okay. Not great. Well, I love having you on the show, man. Hopefully I can come back on your show and do it where I'm not looking like a basketball court.
The only reason you haven't been back on the Will Cain show is that you can't figure out FaceTime, Zoom, or technology. That's the only reason. We're a visual medium here, Dakich. Last time you had a green screen over your face. I just need you to sort that out, and I'll put you on ASAP.
As my wife says, Dan, you look good blurred, and you look good in the dark. Will, thanks for coming on, brother. Thanks.